In the sun-baked hills of Andalusia, where the air hummed with the scent of olive groves and distant flamenco strings, Addison Reyes had always chased horizons that her family deemed too wild. Born into a lineage of stoic vintners in Ronda, Spain, those rugged cliffs where the wind whispered secrets through ancient bridges, Addison was the eldest daughter, the one meant to anchor the crumbling estate her parents had fought to keep afloat. At 28, with her sharp hazel eyes and the kind of quiet fire that could ignite a room without raising her voice, she had traded the family's expectations for a life stitched together with Adeline's laughter. Adeline Harper, 26, with her sun-kissed freckles and a cascade of golden curls that caught the light like wild honey, had washed up on these shores 3 years ago, a freelance photographer from Seattle chasing the raw edges of Europe's forgotten corners. Their love had bloomed in the shadow of the Puente Nuevo, that vertigo-inducing bridge spanning the Guadalavian Gorge, where Addison had first let her guard down over a shared bottle of Rioja under a canopy of stars. It wasn't the kind of romance that announced itself with fanfare. No, it started small, a chance encounter at a local mercado, where Adeline's camera lens had lingered too long on the way Addison's fingers traced the veins of a ripe figure. "You make fruit look like poetry," Adeline had teased, her American accent clipping the Spanish words like a fresh breeze off the Atlantic. Addison, ever the pragmatist, had laughed it off, but something in that gaze had hooked her deep, pulling her from the rote rhythms of family dinners and vineyard ledgers. Adeline's world was one of fleeting frames and unfiltered truths, Addison's was rooted in soil that demanded loyalty. Yet together, they carved out a rhythm. Lazy mornings in Addison's tiny casita, where the walls were papered with Adeline's prints of sunsets bleeding into the sea, and evenings wandering the whitewashed streets of Ronda, hands brushing like promises yet to be spoken. But love, in a place like this, was never just theirs to claim. The Reyes family was a tapestry of old wounds and fiercer prides. Her father, Mateo, a weathered man whose hands bore the calluses of decades pruning vines, silent as the stones he tilled. Her mother, Isabella, whose tongue could lash like a summer storm, guarding the hearth with a vigilance born of loss. And then there was Javier, Addison's younger brother, 24 and adrift, the golden boy who had chased shadows into the underbelly of Malaga's nightlife. Drugs, they said. Debts that spiraled like the gorge below the bridge. 2 years ago, he'd been arrested in a raid on a smuggling ring, petty theft escalating to something uglier, a desperate grab for quick cash that landed him in Alhoran prison, his face gaunt in the grainy newspaper photo that Isabella clipped and wept over nightly. Addison had shouldered the guilt like a yoke. Javier had always been her shadow, trailing her through the vineyards as kids, his laughter a counterpoint to her seriousness. When he spiraled, she'd wired money she didn't have, visited him behind those cold bars until the guards knew her by name. "Fix this, Addie," he'd whisper through the plexiglass, his eyes hollowed by regret. "For Mama. For us." But fixing Javier meant choices, sacrifices that chipped away at the life she was building with Adeline. And now, with their wedding just weeks away, the noose tightened. The planning had been a quiet rebellion. A small ceremony in a cliffside chapel overlooking the valley, nothing lavish, just Adeline's artist friends from abroad, a few locals who'd warmed to the gringo with the camera, and the Reyeses, grudgingly invited out of some fragile hope for peace. Addison had envisioned it as a bridge of their own, vows exchanged in the golden hour, ring simple bands of hammered silver etched with olive leaves. Adeline, ever the dreamer, had sketched mood boards of wildflowers and candlelit paths, her excitement bubbling like the kava they'd toast with. "This is us claiming it, Addie," she'd say, pulling Addison close in the dim light of their kitchen, her lips brushing the curve of Addison's neck. No more hiding. No more what-ifs. Yet the what-ifs loomed larger with every passing day. Isabella's calls grew sharper, laced with scripture and sighs. "A woman with a woman. In our church. What of legacy, Addison? What of Javier rotting while you play house?" Mateo said little, but his silence was a weight, his eyes following her like accusations unspoken. Addison deflected, pouring her heart into the details, the playlist of Nina Simone covers by a local jazz trio, the feast of gazpacho and jamon that would honor both their worlds. Adeline sensed the storm brewing but met it with her unflinching optimism. They'll see us, really see us, she'd insist, her blue eyes steady as she framed Addison's face in her hands. Love like this. It's louder than any family feud. The first crack came on a sweltering afternoon in late spring, as Addison knelt in the vineyard, inspecting the budding grapes for blight. Her phone buzzed against the dirt, Isabella's voice slicing through the static. He's worse, Mija. The guards say he's talking suicide. You think your friend can fix that? Blood calls to blood. Addison's chest tightened, the sun suddenly too fierce. She drove to Malaga that evening, Adeline's worried texts lighting up the dashboard like fireflies. The prison visit was a blur of fluorescent hell, Javier across the divider, thinner than last time, his tattooed arms twitching with withdrawal. They want me out, Addie. Bail's down to 20,000 euros if we act fast. But Mama says. She says you'll help. For the wedding gift, right? Make it right. Addison's throat burned. She'd scraped together savings, but 20,000. It would gut their future, the down payment on the little finca they'd eyed, Adeline's dream darkroom. I'll figure it, she lied, pressing her palm to the glass as if she could reach through. Javier's gratitude was a ghost of his old grin. You're the strong one. Always were. Back home, Adeline waited on the porch, her camera idle for once. She didn't press, just wrapped Addison in a blanket of her warmth, tracing lazy circles on her back until the sobs subsided. We're in this together, Adeline murmured, her voice a lifeline. Whatever this is. That night, they made love slowly, deliberately, not with the fire of youth, but the deep ache of souls intertwining, Addison whispering promises into Adeline's skin like prayers against the dawn. But dawn brought no mercy. Isabella arrived unannounced the next morning, her rosary beads clicking like a metronome of judgment. She clutched a faded photo of Javier as a boy, all dimples and dirt-streaked cheeks. You owe him this, Addison. We've sacrificed, your father sold the East Field for his lawyer. And you? Chasing skirts while your brother starves? The words landed like barbs, drawing blood Addison didn't know she had. Adeline, overhearing from the kitchen, stepped in with her gentle steel. Senora Reyes, with respect, love isn't a ledger. It's not about owing. It's about choosing. Isabella's laugh was bitter, a sound like breaking glass. Choosing. You've poisoned her against us, you American wanderer. Take your pictures and go, before you drag her down with you. The door slammed behind her, leaving a vacuum that sucked the air from the room. Addison sank to the floor, Adeline kneeling beside her, their foreheads touching in silent solidarity. I'm not going anywhere, Adeline vowed, her fingers threading through Addison's hair. And neither are you. Not from me. Yet doubt crept in like mist off the gorge. Addison lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling beam scarred by generations of Reyes hands. Was this selfishness? Javier's letters piled up, please scrawled in shaky script, don't let me die here, sis. Adeline's joy dimmed too, her smiles forced as she edited wedding photos, the images of them laughing in mock veils now shadowed by unspoken fears. Friends noticed, the local baker, Rosa, slipping extra pan de almidro with pitying eyes, Adeline's expat circle offering awkward toasts that skirted the truth. As the wedding day dawned, July 15th, under a sky bruised with heat lightning, Addison dressed in her gown with trembling hands, the lace whispering against her skin like a lover's regret. Adeline, radiant in pink silk, pinned a sprig of lavender to Addison's hair, her touch lingering. Today, we rewrite the story, she said, voice thick with emotion. The chapel waited, perched on the cliff's edge, its bells tolling like a heartbeat. Guests milled in the courtyard, the air alive with murmurs and the clink of glasses. Addison's pulse thrummed with a mix of terror and triumph. This was defiance, yes, but also devotion. They walked the aisle arm in arm, Adeline's free hand clutching a bouquet of wild roses, thorns pricked but ignored. The officiant, a kindly priest who'd bent rules for love before, began with words of unity and grace. Addison's vows spilled out first, raw and unpolished. Adeline, you saw me when I was invisible, in the vines, in the silences. I choose you, every shadowed valley and sunlit peak. Adeline's response was poetry, her voice steady. Addison, you're my anchor in this wild world. I promise to frame your storms and your sunrises, to love you fierce and free. The ring slid on, cool metal sealing fates. The kiss was a revelation, soft, then searing, the world narrowing to the salt of happy tears. Cheers erupted, fragile as spun glass. But as they turned to face their future, the doors flew open. Javier stood there, unshackled but unbowed, flanked by Isabella and Mateo, their faces a storm front of fury and desperation. Stop this blasphemy! Isabella cried, her voice cracking the air. Javier, eyes wild, stepped forward, a crumpled bail receipt in his fist. You paid for my freedom, Addie. With what? Our future. Mama said you'd come to your senses. Addison's world tilted. The truth crashed down. Isabella had forged her signature on a loan against the vineyard, using the wedding as collateral in some twisted bid for redemption. Betrayal, sharp as a scythe. Adeline's grip tightened, her whisper fierce, breathe, love. We're not done. The courtyard froze, time splintering into shards of horrified gasps and the distant rumble of thunder rolling in from the Sierra. Javier's presence was a specter, his prison pallor stark against the vibrant tiles, his once athletic frame now wiry and haunted, tattoos snaking up his neck like accusations. He clutched the paper like a talisman, his voice a ragged plea. I didn't know, Addie. They said it was for us, for the family. That you'd understand. But his eyes darted, guilty flickers betraying the half-truth. Isabella surged forward, her black dress a widow's shroud, rosary swinging like a pendulum of doom. This isn't family, she spat, jabbing a finger at Adeline. This is ruin. You've shamed us, Addison, parading your sin while your brother begged for mercy behind bars. Addison's knees buckled, but Adeline held her upright, a pillar of unyielding grace amid the chaos. The guests shifted uneasily, Rosa crossing herself, Adeline's friend Lena from Berlin whispering frantic Spanish into her phone. Mateo, silent sentinel, finally spoke, his gravel voice cutting through. Enough, Isabella. The girls made her choice. But his eyes, red-rimmed, pleaded with Addison, choose us. Choose blood. The betrayal uncoiled in Addison's gut like barbed wire. Weeks ago, in a haze of desperation, Isabella had confessed over tea, not confessed, demanded, that the estate's mortgage loomed, vines withering under drought. Javier's bail is the key, she'd insisted, sliding papers across the table. Sign, Mija. For legacy. Addison had refused, tearing the documents, vowing to find another way. But Isabella, in her fervor, had gone further, impersonating Addison at the bank, forging the wedding date as leverage for a rushed approval. 20,000 euros, wired straight to the prison, Javier's release a poisoned gift on their sacred day. You lied, Addison whispered, stepping forward, her gown trailing petals like fallen soldiers. You used me, our love, to cage him free. Isabella's face crumpled, defiance warring with maternal ache. I saved him. What is your union compared to a son's life? God forgives blood, he damns the unnatural. Javier flinched, reaching for Addison's arm. Sis, please. Come home. We can fix this, forget her, start over. His touch burned, a reminder of childhood forts built from vine crates, of promises whispered in the dark after their parents' fights. Adeline's voice sliced the tension, calm but laced with steel. No one's forgetting anything. This day is ours, stolen, maybe, but ours. She turned to the officiant, who hovered like a ghost. Finish it. Now. Murmurs rippled, support from the expats, hesitation from locals bound by old ties. The priest glanced at Addison, seeking permission in her storm-tossed eyes. But Javier lunged, not with violence, but desperation, crumpling to his knees on the stone path. "Addie, they beat me in there, for debts I couldn't pay. Your money. It was mercy. Don't throw it away on this." Tears carved tracks down his cheeks, and for a heartbeat, Addison saw the boy he'd been, gap-toothed grin, chasing her through the groves. Her heart fractured, love for him a tether, pulling against the gravity of Adeline's hand in hers. Isabella seized the moment, her voice rising to a wail. "See? He needs you. Not some foreign temptress who'll leave when the novelty fades." The word temptress hung like a curse, echoing the slurs whispered in Rhonda's markets when Adeline first arrived. Addison's fury ignited, hot and clarifying. "She's no temptation, she's my home. You think prison broke Javier? No, your blindness did." Hiding his pain, pretending faith erases failure. Thunder cracked overhead, the first fat drop splattering the archway. Guests scattered for cover, but the core remained, family versus chosen, legacy versus liberation. Adeline pulled Addison aside, under the dripping vines, rain mingling with their tears. "You don't have to fight alone," she said, cupping Addison's face. "But if you choose them now, it's okay. I'll love you from afar, always." Her vulnerability cracked Addison open, revealing the depth of their bond, not fireworks, but heathfire, steady through gales. "I choose us," Addison breathed, sealing it with a kiss that tasted of salt and resolve. They returned to the altar, rain sheeting down, turning the courtyard to a mosaic of slick color. The priest, drenched but resolute, raised his hands. "In the face of storms, we affirm, do you, Addison Reyes, take Adeline Harper as your wife, to honor and cherish, through shadow and light?" "I do," Addison said, voice amplified by the downpour. "And you, Adeline Harper, take Addison Reyes?" "With every beat of my heart, I do." Rings exchanged anew, vows reaffirmed in the deluge. No kiss this time, just a gaze, profound and unbreakable. Isabella sobbed, Javier rising unsteadily, Mateo's hand on his shoulder a rare anchor. As cheers pierced the rain, Lena's whoops, Rosa's tentative clap, the family retreated, shadows in the downpour, their silence a wound yet to scar. The reception unfolded in fractured joy, under a tent strung with lanterns that bobbed like fireflies. Adeline's friends toasted with imported whiskey, their stories of queer weddings in Berlin and Portland weaving a safety net of normalcy. Addison danced with her wife, the word a revelation, slow circles to a rain-muffled guitar, Adeline's head on her shoulder. "We did it," Adeline murmured, her curls damp against Addison's cheek. "Despite the apocalypse." But euphoria was fleeting. Javier cornered her by the dessert table, his breath sour with relief and regret. "Mommy's broken, Addie." She thought saving me would save you from this mistake." He glanced at Adeline, laughing with Lena, envy flickering. "She's good for you. But us. We're poison now." Addison's throat tightened. "Then heal, Javier." "Not for me, for you. Get clean, find work in the vines. Prove blood means more than chains." He nodded, hollow. "I'll try. For Papa." A fragile truce, but as he walked away, Addison glimpsed the chasm, years of enabling, of love twisted into control. Isabella refused to stay, sweeping out with Mateo in tow, her parting shot a hissed prayer for absolution. The vineyard loan hung over them like a guillotine, debts Addison would shoulder, selling heirlooms if needed. Adeline, sensing the weight, squeezed her hand. "We'll plant new vines. Together." That night, in their casita aglow with candles, they shed soaked clothes and collapsed into bed, bodies entwined in exhausted tenderness. No grand gestures, just the press of skin, breath sinking like waves on the shore. "I was scared you'd walk," Addison confessed, tracing Adeline's freckles like constellations. Adeline smiled, soft. "Never. You're my shot in the dark, the one that hits home." Sleep came fitful, dreams laced with gorges and ghosts. Dawn brought clarity, harsh as the sun scorching the puddles dry. A call from the bank, the loan, indeed forged, but irrevocable without contesting in court, a battle that would drag Javier's sins into daylight, shame the family further. Addison dressed for war, Adeline beside her, camera packed like armor. Document it, Addison said. Not for scandal, for truth. They drove to Rhonda's old quarter, the bridge looming as they parked. Isabella waited in the family home, a stone fortress amid geranium pots, her eyes puffy but defiant. The confrontation was a symphony of silences and salvos. Mateo mediated, his rare words heavy. We acted from fear, Addison. Fear of losing you both. Javier hovered, fidgeting with a vine twig, his addiction's tremor evident. Isabella broke first, collapsing into a chair. I saw him in chains, Mija. Like your abuelo in Franco's time, innocent, crushed. I couldn't bear another loss. Her confession spilled, the forgeries born of panic, the wedding a symbol of all slipping away. Addison's anger softened, not to forgiveness, but understanding, the human frailty that bound them. You didn't lose me, Mama. You pushed me to fight harder, for love, for us all. Adeline spoke then, bridging the gulf. I know pain like that. My folks back home. They cut me off when I came out. But bridges aren't just stone, they're rebuilt, plank by plank. Her words, simple and American straightforward, pierced Isabella's armor. A tentative olive branch, tea poured, stories shared of Adeline's Pacific Northwest rains versus Andalusian heat. Yet betrayal's echo lingered. Javier admitted his role, knowing the fund's source, silent for freedom's sake. I was weak, he said, voice cracking. Addison pulled him into a hug, fierce. Strength isn't perfection. It's showing up. They left with papers and signed, a promise to mediate the debt, no court, just family council. Driving back, Adeline's hand on Addison's thigh, the gorge below a metaphor for depth survived. Weeks blurred into a rhythm of reclamation. The vineyard yielded a modest harvest, grapes swollen with summer's fury. Addison and Adeline worked side by side, Adeline's photos capturing the labor's poetry, sweat-glistened brows, soil-stained smiles. Javier checked into a Malaga clinic, his text sporadic but sincere, day 7. Thinking of bridges. Isabella sent Jamon, wordless but warming. Mateo visited once, gruffly offering tools for the finca. Build strong, he said, eyes on Adeline. Like her. But peace was tentative, tested by autumn's chill. Adeline's visa loomed, her freelance gig expiring, whispers of returning stateside. I want roots here, she confessed one evening, as they picnicked on the bridge's edge, wind-tugging skirts. With you. But if family pulls. Addison silenced her with a kiss, the gorges roar their witness. They pull us closer now. Watch. November swept in on sirocco winds, stripping leaves from the olives and laying bare the bones of the land. The finca they'd bought, a ramshackle charmer on Rhonda's outskirts, with crumbling walls and a view that stole breaths, became their canvas. Addison bartered vines for repairs, Adeline bartered photos for labor, her lens turning decay into dream. Mornings were theirs, coffee on the terracotta patio, Adeline sketching Addison's profile against the dawn, capturing the new lines of worry and wonder etched by their trial. You're more beautiful in the breaking, Adeline would say, her blue eyes soft with that unflinching adoration that had first unraveled Addison's defenses. Yet the scars pulsed. Javier's rehab stretched into months, relapses confessed in midnight calls that left Addison hollow. I'm trying, sis. For you, for the wife who sees through the mess. His use of wife was a balm, tentative inclusion. Isabella thawed slowly, invitations to Sunday lunches laced with questions about Adeline's curious work. No apologies, but gestures, a knitted shawl for Adeline, olive oil pressed by Mateo's hands. The debt lingered, payments siphoning their savings, but Addison refused resentment. It's the price of freedom, she'd tell Adeline, who nodded, her own homesickness a quiet undercurrent, letters from Seattle unopened, her mother's silence a mirror to Isabella's old frost. The real tempest brewed in December, as snow dusted the Sierras, an anomaly that blanketed Rhonda in hushed white. Adeline's exhibition opened in Malaga, edges of us, prints of their life framed in reclaimed wood, the chapel arch mid-rain, Addison's hand in hers against the gorge, Javier's shadowed silhouette on release day, not accusatory but human. Invitations went to the family, a bold stroke. Addison's heart hammered as they drove coastal roads, the Mediterranean a slate-gray churn. "If they don't come, it's okay," Adeline said, but her grip on the wheel betrayed the ache. The gallery buzzed, expats and locals mingling over Tempranillo, Adeline's voice steady as she spoke of love's raw frames. Isabella arrived last, Mateo at her elbow, Javier trailing with downcast eyes. No fanfare, just their presence, a quiet earthquake. They wandered the walls, Isabella pausing at a photo of the wedding kiss, rain-blurred but luminous. "It's beautiful," she murmured, voice foreign with vulnerability. Javier lingered by his own image, throat working. "You made me look redeemable." Adeline approached, tentative. "You are. We all are." Dinner followed, unscripted at a harborside taverna, flames dancing in a brazier against the cold. Talk flowed halting, Javier's job at a vineyard co-op, Mateo's tales of Franco-era smuggling, ironic, given the past, Isabella's guarded questions about Seattle's endless wet. Addison watched Adeline weave in, her stories of Northwest forests drawing laughs, her hand under the table a steady anchor. When Isabella raised her glass, to bridges, the toast hung, profound. Not full mending, but mortar in the cracks. Climax came unbidden, in the new year. Javier relapsed, hard, a bender ending in a crash that totaled Mateo's truck. The call shattered a quiet morning, sirens, hospital fluorescents, Isabella's wail over the line. "He's gone too far this time. Lost." Addison drove through sleet, Adeline beside her, the finca fading in the rearview. The ER was a limbo of beeps and bleach, Javier bandaged, coherent but shattered, doctors murmuring of detox protocols. Isabella paced, rosary frantic, Mateo slumped, defeated. "You're here," Javier rasped to Addison, eyes bloodshot. "After everything." She took his hand, calloused from new labor. "Always, hermano. But this ends the cycle." Adeline, ever the quiet force, spoke to Isabella, "Let us help. Not control, help." What followed was raw negotiation, Javier to a stateside program Adeline's contacts funded, a fresh start away from old haunts. Isabella resisted, "He's ours to fix," but exhaustion won. "Teach me to let go," she whispered to Addison, a mother's surrender. The betrayal's ghost resurfaced in flashes, forged papers unearthed in court mediation, Isabella's finest slap on the wrist, but the emotional toll a deeper cut. "I thought I was God," she confessed one vineyard evening, pruner's idol. "Saving you from hell. But hell was my fear." Addison forgave, not erasure, but release. "Hell's separation, mama. We're mending that." Spring unfurled tentative blooms, the finca alive with Adeline's darkroom glow and Addison's hybrid vines, Spanish stock grafted with American varietals, a metaphor made manifest. Javier's letters from Portland arrived, edged with hope, "Therapy's brutal, but I'm seeing the boy you chased." He met a girl there, quiet mentions of coffee dates, a life reclaiming color. Isabella visited weekly, her hands joining the harvest, Adeline's camera capturing the trio, mother, daughter, daughter-in-law, in frames of quiet alliance. One June eve, a year post-wedding, they gathered on the bridge at dusk. The gorge swirled below, alive with swallows. Mateo brought cava, Isabella, a cake frosted with olive leaves. Javier joined via video, his face fuller, grinning. "Toasts," he prompted. Addison went first, to betrayals that birth truth. Adeline, to chosen families that become blood. Isabella, voice steady, to daughters who teach mercy. As stars pricked the indigo, Addison pulled Adeline close, the wind a lover's hush. Their journey, drama of storms, emotions' deep currents, romance's unyielding bloom, had forged something human, flawed, enduring. Not perfection, but presence, love as verb, as vineyard tilled against odds. In Spain's ancient heart, two women had rewritten legacy, one vow at a time. And in that rewrite, they found grace, not in absence of pain, but in its alchemy to light.